Hello, once again, friends, and welcome to another episode of Strange Planet. And if you'd like to get deeper into Strange Planet, it's real easy to do. You can become a premium subscriber by clicking on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. You gain access to commercial-free listening, bonus episodes produced exclusively for premium subscribers. You also get a free subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. Again, the link is in the episode notes. Just about a month ago, a little bit more, the first human received Elon Musk's Neuralink brain implant. Again, this was end of January, the patient receiving the implant from Elon Musk's computer brain interface company, Neuralink. And the name of this first version, I guess, of the Neuralink is called Telepathy, which is a rather interesting name. It led my next guest to wonder, why would he call it telepathy? Did he receive the idea for the Neuralink implant telepathically? And if so, from whom or from what? Ali Siadatan is the founder of Think Again Productions in Canada, a multimedia teaching ministry shedding light on mysteries and treasures of scriptural knowledge, which is making the Bible more real than ever. And in 2006, Ali produced UFOs Angels and Gods, where it has received hundreds of thousands of views. In 1996, Ali completed a master's degree in French language and literature at the University of Toronto, and he opened a center to minister to urbanites through martial and healing arts, as well as spiritual studies for seekers. ThinkAgainProductions.com is the website. Ali, welcome back. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me, Richard. I really look forward to having this conversation with you. And if people want to check out our work, they can go to thinkagainproductions.com and scroll down the front page and be sure to follow me on Twitter. There's a great documentary right on the front page you can watch. It's for everyone to watch. And if you feel called to leave a donation, do that. Thinkagainproductions.com.
All right. So this idea of someone like an Elon Musk, or let's say an inventor, and I've talked to a number of inventors over the years. They consistently they'll say things like, "It came to me in a dream," or first you invent something in the dream world and then you invent it in the real world. Nikola Tesla said the same thing. Many inventors have said this. So the idea that he would call Elon Musk would call his neuro implant telepathy. Um, Again, the idea that he's receiving a telepathic message. Where do you think he's receiving that message from, or from whom?
Well, there's a context to the way I see history and the age in which we live. And when Jesus was asked about to talk about the end of the age, and he then drew from this Jewish way of thinking, which was that the ages that are in the Bible are templates of future ages. They are in small versions of future ages that are going to be similar to the ages recorded in the histories of the Bible, and then are going to manifest on a larger scale. And that's why these ages were in the Bible. This is the story of the Passover and the Pharaoh and the gods that are behind him and the Lamb. This is about the first and second coming. There's going to be a final Pharaoh. There's going to be, a battle of spiritual forces. These are all templates of future ages. The story of Abraham going to do the binding of Isaac and sacrifice him. This is really about Jesus, even though it's a historical, event. So the story of Joseph, how he doesn't recognize his brothers don't recognize him the first time they see him, but they do the second time, like the Jewish people that will recognize the Lord more the second time on a larger scale. So Jesus says, well, the end of the age will be like the days of Noah. So suddenly he goes into kind of the traditions of the Torah and the Jewish thought, and he pulls that age of history out. And he says it'll be like this. And the days of Noah were days of the sons of God and daughters of men. And everyone now has heard more or less the story of the Nephilim, which has become very kind of popular. It took some time for that to take off. There was a lot of resistance, but it really has, there's been a breakthrough. Now, when you look into the story of the Nephilim and even what it says in the book of Genesis, you'll see there's more to it than just the creation of hybrids. There's actually two other important points. One is the transmission of massive amounts of knowledge and information. There really was like an age of Atlantis, and that is recorded in the book of Enoch, which was a sacred book to the Jewish people, and even Jude quotes it in the New Testament, where we see that there are these seven bodies of knowledge that are handed down that are kind of akin to modern day science. And there is the third issue, which really is beyond the scope of our conversation, was the transmission of the scepter of rulership. Kings were chosen. So these were the kind of three main intrusions into the human world. The corruption of humanity through powerful forms of knowledge, which together formed actually an occult religion, and this distracted from the plans of God and from the worship of God and from the design of God for the human creation, and also the creation of hybrid kings, which is another thing that is part of perhaps our future. So this transmission of knowledge continues in the world after the flood, the way that the stories of the giants continue after the flood. There's all of these. There's tons of religions where the guy that's on top giving you is a demigod. He's half human and half god, like Indra from the Vedic text, or like King Minos of the Crete. And these are things that people have relegated in the world of myth. But in light of the modern day abduction phenomenon and the reality, the continued presence of these beings, suddenly it's like, well, was it really myth? Because you look at the modern day abduction phenomenon, people are abducted and there's communication. They're given messages like, there's going to be environmental problems and we're going to help you with that. There's people like, what's his name? Stephen Greer, who's very much Dr. Greer, an advocate for aliens. And he says they're going to give us technology that's going to help with the salination of water and create energy cheap for people and all kinds of stuff like that. So there's this idea of transmission of knowledge that continues throughout the ages. The codes of civilization were handed down, the various religions, the how to build temples, which is the basis of mathematics. The math is super complex to build like a ziggurat. And these, we have like not only in writing do we have the story of a particular king, like the king of Lagash. He has a dream. He goes to the seer of dreams, and they say to him, "Well, this particular god wants you to build a temple, and is showing you the template." And you can see his statue, which also came to the Royal Antwerp Museum here, where there's a template right on, or Moses received templates from his God about how to build a temple in Jerusalem, or how to build the tent of meeting, and many other things are shown to him that he's supposed to create. It says their heavenly things were shown to him, and he was told to create human replicas. And so is the story of the Solomon receiving from David, his father, from God, the architecture of the Temple of Jerusalem, which is very different from the ziggurats. It's multi-level, but the levels are more like you go forward from one chamber into the other instead of up. So you'll come to the modern age and you look at the UFO phenomenon, you see that there's again the question of the transmission of knowledge, like the days of Noah. And you see that really what we were told by people who've been looking into abductions deeply, that it kind of began at the end of the 19th century, in the late 1800s. At the same time, it seems that the Industrial Revolution started. And if you look at the Industrial Revolution, it's phenomenal how for thousands of years humans lived the same way. They're farmers, they got ox, they got horse, and everybody's looking. And when you go to medieval England or you go to ancient Mesopotamia, there's a lot of similarities. And suddenly, out of England comes this industrial revolution that propels this part of the world forward.
Steam
And
power. Steam power.
steam power. And then we have Henry Ford, a fan of Hitler, that creates the gas engine, which then, reignites the Islamic movement because that's where the oil is. And then we move forward from there into the various stages of this industrial revolution that continue to alter our life at a speed that is, historians, anthropologists, sociologists, they're astonished at, like, when they draw the curve of human knowledge, there's like the hockey puck, boom. It's like, what just happened to us? We like my grandmother, God bless her soul, she used to tell me, I remember when we were traveling around in Iran, and horses and chariots. Next thing you know, I'm on an aeroplane.
Well,
You
my
know,
own mother, who just recently passed away, remembers traveling to her grandparents for Christmas by horse and cutter.
right.
And yet she lived long enough, not only to see man on the moon, but she lived long enough to see artificial intelligence. And
There you go.
that's when she said, I think I've lived too long.
Wow.
So let me just back up for a minute there. The transfer of all of this information and knowledge to
Mhm.
humankind from the fallen angels.
Right.
Why would they? I mean, Satan hates mankind. He's jealous. He hates us. He wants to see our destruction. Why did the fallen angels give information and technology to man? And what kinds of information and technology are we talking about? Because not
Okay.
all knowledge is evil, obviously.
Yes, exactly. It's more about the perversion of God's creation for a different use. So as far as why, I can see four distinct uses for it. One, going back to the Nazis. So look at the Nazis. There was this Project Paperclip. There was a place, I forget the name. It was a secret. Eventually, the Allies got to it, but there was a secret place the Nazis had where they're developing all this advanced technology. They had B-2 bombers, they had jets, they had rockets. I mean, they were not just ahead of the Allies by a little bit. They were like miles ahead. In fact, the technology that the Soviet and Americans took out of Germany became the basis of those two empires, and the technology of airplanes, which is very interesting that it was the technology of airplanes. But
And the putting the man on the moon when Werner von Braun
yeah,
came over and was
exactly.
ahead of NASA. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you think about space in a secular light, you say, well, that's outer space. But in the biblical worldview, it's the heavens. And we're on the earth and the heavens. There's three heavens in the Bible. That's why it's plural. The first heaven is the sky where the birds fly. The second heaven is the universe where the stars, sun, and moon are. And the third heaven is the abode of God, and angels were the temple, the heart of time and space. So there's three heavens. And so that's why it's Shamaim, it's plural in Hebrew, and Uranus in Greek. And in English, we say heavens because the Bible recognizes three. So when we're sending stuff into outer space, we're technically sending it into the second heaven. These are the chambers of God's creation, and suddenly we really are able to travel. So this technology, I would say that the Nazis got one of its main purposes was destruction of the Jews. So that's, I would say, one of the purposes of this technology. The second purpose was to create the Third Reich. So it's about creating a new world in the image and thinking of these beings. That's what we saw in the days of Noah. They created kingdoms. Apparently there's three capitals. One of them was near Taiwan, the Mu. If you go Google around the coast of Taiwan, there's these giant pyramids under the sea that they say are like from pre-Diluvian periods. I mean, they're really nicely cut and everything. Of course, the most important of all the capitals before the flood was Atlantis, which apparently, was ruled by Atlas in the Greek name that he's received. So the idea of creating a world that is not in the image of God's algorithms and thoughts and laws, but according to their own. So they're infusing their DNA into ours, creating hybrids, and then infusing that hybrid civilization with knowledge. The way that God, put life on earth and gave that life knowledge, they are giving us knowledge to shape a civilization in their own image, the way that God created man in his own image to be his image bearer and have a destiny in the cosmos. They're creating their own image bearers and giving it the knowledge of a civilization that bears their image, their ideas. So that's the second thing, to create a civilization that competes with God's vision. Third is to control and dominate that civilization. It seems that control and domination is an important part of the thinking. They don't have the omnipresence and omniscience of God. They don't have the power of the Holy Spirit. I remember once listening to this man who grew up in a Satanist family where he was born into it. And eventually, he walked into a church where people were, in different places, and he felt the power of the Holy Spirit. And he said that's what freed him, because he said they used to go in circles in these covens and chant. And after a lot of rituals and chanting and sacrifice, they finally felt some power come among them. He said, but once he came and he saw that the power of God was everywhere in the room, he immediately knew this was on a whole other scale and could fill the earth. So there is this idea that they can't connect with us the way God can, so they have to create technology to dominate us. And there's nothing more intrusive than, of course, putting something directly into your brain and being able to talk to it, right? Perhaps you will have dreams, but what dreams may come in that sleep of, telepathy. So there is this idea of control. And then the fourth purpose and final purpose is to prepare the human race for the war of angels. As the second coming comes, and now we're seeing the nature of the second coming, the Lord of hosts will not be necessarily in the magical format of the medieval church or in the highly spiritualized format of Greek Gnosticism, but it may be more the kinds of things we see in the book of Revelation or we see in the book of Zechariah, for instance, where God, slays his enemies and their eyes, it says they crumble from their sockets, their bodies melt. It seems to be more like God honors the laws of his sacred creation, like let's say the nuclear bomb or the human DNA or laser or the sun. All of these things, they're not just small material world stuff. They're actually the works of genius. And God honors his creation and calls it good in every phase of it in the book of Genesis and blessed, and he utilizes it. So the war of angels is where we're headed. So they're preparing us, and I think that's what outer space is all about. Rockets are all about. They're preparing us to be able to put up a fight because, as unlikely as it may seem, it says in many, many passages in the Bible, Old and New Testament, that man is going to go to war against God. There's actually going to be a war of angels. It sounds crazy. How could we pull it off? And why would he do it? Well, the alien clothing and the technology of angels would put us at par because remember, in this story, we are of the world of God and angels. So that's the fourth reason.
Okay. So how do we differentiate between technology or knowledge that comes from fallen angels or from, the great deceiver versus knowledge and technology that is, well, perhaps divinely inspired, but also just it's not from the fallen angels. How do we figure it out?
I think there are two ways. One is the Lord said you'll know something by its fruits. So it's like, what are we going to do with this? Now, a knife is a neutral thing. It can cut and kill, but it can also make sculptings. Um, so the fruits of it, what are we going to do with it? So it's mainly maybe that's even more important than the technology itself. It's more who takes hold of it and what we do with it. Ultimately, the discerning tool we were given is biblical prophecy. And biblical prophecy is rooted in biblical history, meaning that it's the continuation of a story within a context of a literature. A pattern is set. So if we first understand it in that context, we can't just create our own understanding of it. And then Jesus said that the Holy Spirit is what he would send when he would went to go to the Father and present himself to him. Um, and that's what happened. That's what changed the world 2,000 years ago. That's why the Roman Empire was changed. The whole world was changed because the Spirit of God entered the world. And that Spirit, what he says in the book, Gospel of John, that its main purpose is to give us discernment into Scripture. And so it's like a light in our consciousness. So we will know the truth, and because the Spirit of truth will be in us. And it'll give us discernment into the Scriptures. And so we will now know how to decipher and understand like a light. Your eyes only see things because they see the reflection of light. And so when we look at the words and teachings of these mysterious parables and prophecies, the Holy Spirit illuminates our consciousness. And we have to read it in the context of the Bible, but we also need the Holy Spirit. Without it, you don't get the discernment. You just create your own ideas. So God will go ahead of us and will show us that there are certain things He recorded in here that match the technologies that we're seeing, or the governmental systems we're seeing, or the world order we're seeing. So we'll have to see how this thing is used. But one thing that kind of was red flag to me. So first of all, what is telepathy? What is this technology that's created? So it's a brain implant. It goes directly into your brain. It's part of a company that is created called Neuralink out of California. It's a startup. It's totally worth billions of dollars, apparently. And the purpose of Neuralink, the ultimate purpose of Neuralink, is to create brain implants that allow humans to directly plug into AI. That is the purpose of the company. And that's because Elon says that AI is moving forward so quickly that unless we can tap into it directly, we won't be able to keep up with it. So it gives you a brain upgrade. For instance, you want to learn French? Well, don't have to study anymore. It'll directly download it into your brain. Do you want to know it for a week because you're going to go on a holiday to Paris, or do you want to know it permanently? It's kind of like the movie The Matrix, I know Kung Fu. So basically, it goes taps into your brain and your brain taps into AI. That's the ultimate purpose of Neuralink. And if you want to kind of see his ideas, you can watch a debate that he has in Singapore about AI with Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba. You can see that online, and him and Alibaba have this conversation. And it's very interesting because there's one point where he says all of everything I just told you. Elon says these things about humans need AI, need to implant and connect with AI to progress and upgrade their brain or they get run over. And then Jack Ma, who's supposedly the communist guy coming from China, he says, I don't agree with you because AI will never surpass man. Man can make AI, but AI can never make man because man has passion, man has creativity, man has a soul. This is Jack Ma saying this, and here's the Elon, the guy from Silicon Valley. He sounds more like a robot compared to Jack Ma. So I mean, of course, Elon's brain is on a whole different level than Jack Ma's, but it was interesting to see the contrast. Regardless, I don't want to deviate, but what is telepathy? So that's the purpose of Neuralink. But on the way to creating this ultimate goal, Elon is creating byproducts. So first he created implants that were put inside of pigs. And then on YouTube, he had live features where he showed that you could see all the health, monitor the health of the pig. You could see the joints of the pig, his heart rate, all kinds of things right live on the screen. Then he explained that once he puts the implant in, someone who's quadriplegic and you have no access to your limbs, this will turn your access on completely. Your brain will reconnect to all your limbs and you'll be able to walk again. You're blind.
Hard to argue against that, really, isn't it?
It is, right? And this was kind of where it was going. And now, in order to take it to the next level, he needed to put it in a human being. And to put it in a human being, he needed to do an FDA application. And so his first creation, the first model is if you are quadriplegic, this implant that's in the brain, and you can watch it because they put it in a woman and she has it and all the wires are connected, like it's like the primitive version. And so if you're a quadriplegic, you have a computer screen in front of you. You think, and this thing writes or does whatever you're thinking. You want to go to your Netflix, you think the mouse goes and clicks on Netflix for you. You want to go to and type a letter to Richard Surrett. You sit here, you think, and it types it for you. So you can see on YouTube where they put in this woman and she does things with the screen. Oh, she talks. The woman, she can't talk actually. And then her AI talks for her as she thinks. So her thoughts go through the machine. So he put it and worked well. And so he got permission from the FDA now to take it to the next level and put it in humans and get approval. And so it allows the thoughts of people who cannot move their limbs or speak to manifest through technology. And he says that if you have the app, through it, you can virtually operate any technology just through your brain, through your thoughts. And because it goes with your thoughts, he said he calls it that he said officially this I listened to the official release of it. He said that this is Neuralink's first product, and we're calling it telepathy. So this is actually the name of a product. Now, what caught my eye was the fact that the fallen angels or the sons of God in the modern age, in the abduction phenomenon, they're telepathic. They were telepathic in the ancient world as well. But in the modern world, they're speaking telepathically to people. That is the universal testimony of people who are abducted.
Mhm.
And ideas are appearing directly in people's minds, and people's also thoughts are being extracted from people's minds. And anyone who's had this experience and is listening would know this. So, and I, again, watched the documentary UFOs, Angels, Gods. And so I thought, okay, this is interesting because I have now read that in many places that CEOs of big companies sometimes have testimonies of these beings appearing in their bedrooms, beings of light, giving them ideas. I've seen things like, Watson and Crick, who came up with a double helix nature of DNA. Watson is like on the way to work one day. We were struggling forever, we couldn't find it, but one day to work, the whole idea came to me. And so to your point that humans have a creative center and that they come up with ideas, that is part of the feature of the human consciousness. Now, the question is, we know that God can influence that and give us ideas. Can the dark side do that as well? Looking back in the days of Noah, looking at the knowledge that was transmitted to the civilizations throughout the ages, looking at the modern day abduction phenomenon, looking at the story of the Nazis, I would say for sure they are giving us ideas and laws. I mean, the Code of Hammurabi, the sun god Shams gives this code. The Vedic texts, they come from these Indra and all these other gods. Krishna, dictates the Bhagavad Gita. Allah, the Quran, Yahweh, the Bible. I mean, where did all of these things come from, right? Did God just visit all the nations, or did he choose one and speak through the prophets of Israel and then came as his son and sent his Holy Spirit to deliver people from the other gods? So where does this knowledge come from? So knowledge transmission is a very common part of human history. It's the basis of civilization. So yes, they also do transmit knowledge to us. And there is modern, years ago, I remember watching a documentary. It's funny how the internet changed. People like us, we've been on the internet since the days of Netscape, and we've seen like every stage of it, right? There was a time where it was empty, like there was nothing on the internet, especially about these type of topics. And then suddenly you start to get it kind of started populated slowly, slowly. And so there was these moments where you could virtually read everything and see everything about a topic that existed on the internet. And I remember watching a documentary where this guy said, "Look, I'm dying right now." I mean, I watched the documentary myself. He said, "I'm dying, and I am willing to tell the truth now, but I was told that my life would be in danger if I tell the truth." He said that I was visited by aliens, and they gave me the idea of fiber optic cable. And it's like, wow. And he said, I'm dying of cancer. I don't care anymore. But I was threatened, that if I spoke this, I would be killed. So it's like, wow. So you get these glimpses into this thing. So why would someone like Elon perhaps receive an idea that may be laying the foundation of something far more sinister, since we have this prophecy of the mark of the beast in the back of our minds? Well, it's not necessarily that he's in cahoots with the devil or that he's necessarily, swallowing ayahuasca or connecting with some force. Sometimes I see it all the time around me, actually, that humans themselves are gates. And when we don't have the connection with God and our heart is not filled with the love of God, the Holy Spirit, these very important, very specific form of connection there is to God. God is a lofty being. You can't just come to him any way you want. You got to come the way he says so. And so, like approaching a king, then our minds are open to other waves and spirits that wander around like viruses. And if they're going to target the influential people of the world, like in the book of Revelation, there is a prophecy that spirits like frogs go out and gather the kings of the earth to fight against the Lord. They deceive them. So they do target influencers. And Elon, clearly has a natural genius and he is a talented and gifted engineer. But could then he become a target of ideas that are coming to them in in the age of Noah, in the age of the apocalypse, in a world that is governed by these beings as well as by God, like not that are competing with God, but their influence is real as well.
I think he has maybe I'm being naive. I mean, I like what Elon Musk has done with X. I like his stance on free speech. I like his stance on many things.
Right.
And so then we have this paradox where, he's creating something that could lead to, part of the Antichrist system. Maybe it's more like, he's not seeing the big picture. He's genuinely wanting to help, paraplegics be able to navigate through life by being
Yeah, yeah,
turn on
exactly.
their phone, being able to turn on their computer, being able to communicate. I think that comes from a good place. But if he is being influenced from these darker forces, they're seeing the big picture and they're saying, okay, we'll use this person who has
Exactly.
good intentions, but he's really laying the groundwork, creating a technology, a
It's the
technological
closest
age.
thing that we've ever seen to the idea of a mark of the beast that
Right,
directly goes in your head. Yeah.
right, right. Like for example, the person who invented the cellular phone. Um, no doubt, I know had good intentions, but also obviously wanted to make some money, which is fine. Not
I think
necessarily envisaging that one day your smartphone would have TikTok and Instagram on it, and people would scroll endlessly and become hypnotized and basically, zombies. So
sorry, what were you saying? Oh, right. I put my phone down. So exactly like when we look back at this whole, if we're going towards this mark a beast system of government, I think when we look back, we'll see the internet itself as laying the foundations for it, as being the beginnings of it. And then the digital revolution that characters as sinister as Carl Schwab tell us about the fourth stage of the industrial revolution. They call it digital revolution. And he says the digital revolution is the connection of biology and technology, right? And my question is, who's deciding that for all of us? Maybe I don't want that. Like, so someone is just announcing that I'm supposed to just go along with it. Like, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Can we have a vote on this? But that's what he's saying. It's a connection of biology and technology. And now who's making it real? Well, Elon Musk. And here's this very, WF character who's kind of like sinister James Bond, guy, James Bond villain guy. I don't think he is quite aware of how much of that vibe he gives. I don't think he sees it, or maybe he doesn't care. And he says, look, this it's about the merging of biology and technology, the fourth stage of the Industrial Revolution, and then Elon is manifesting it. And remember that the main purpose of Neuralink is to connect us to AI. So I mean, this is just a theory, but since we're having conjectures, I always thought that since the enemy, the adversary, likes to create pseudo, it's all about the pseudo messiah, the pseudo religion, the pseudo kingdom, the pseudo. I'll give you immortality through DNA, manipulation. The pseudo. He doesn't invent anything new. He just copies the things of God. So there's the dragon. He gives his power to the beast. So then the dragon plays the role of the father. He gives his, to the son, which becomes the Antichrist. Literally the pseudo Messiah. So the Messiah is the son of God. So he's going to be, a son. And now I need the Holy Spirit. Well, I always thought that the Holy Spirit would be the mark of the beast, that it's the connection. So the Antichrist connects to AI and we connect to AI, to the same AI. And now we're all one big democratic happy family. We're very, very, it's like
and all of a sudden now Satan is omniscient through the AI.
right. Exactly.
He wasn't before. Now he is.
The Holy Spirit is now, that's like the pseudo, Holy Spirit. It's how he inhabits us. I mean, it gets very dark and occultish, but the Nazis were very much dark and occultish. They were like a religion, like the Cathedral of Lights, and everybody was on drugs. And when you look at the days of Noah, it was a very much a religion. These guys were connecting to the sons of God and to their offsprings. And this knowledge that you read in the book of Enoch, which sounds a lot like science, but actually it was a form of religion. It wasn't, we tend to see everything through the eyes of the Age of Enlightenment. Oh, we created these sciences. But these things were actually, solutions of sorcery, which is pharmakeia, the observers of the stars, signs, astronomy, motion of the moon. it wasn't just because they're like giving us this scientific information. It was because they had kind of like astronomy knowledge, symbols. They then weaved it together to form a religion that then occupied our minds. The way that some people saw like the doctors of today are like the priests of the culture, and they administer the pharmakeia. So it doesn't look religious, but it has like the snakes, and it really has like the trappings of a religion, and it competes with the things of God. So these are, at the end of it, the Antichrist's reign in the last 3.5 years will appear very cultish. It says in the Bible that he will call himself above all that is called God. So he competes with God. And I think that's where it gets really goes into hyperdrive, is he has a 7-year rule. In the middle of it, in the 3.5 years, that's when he just says, he removes all masks and he asks to be worshipped. It becomes a cult at that point. And so the religion is really at the heart of it. A dark spirit, occult spirituality is behind it. And the science, the knowledge, technology is the tools of that religion and of that spirituality. And that's why it manifests into the war of angels through all of this. Even you look at like Copernicus or Galileo, or Lord Bacon, all of these guys, modern science has its origins in magic and mysticism and in Masonic rites and mystery schools. We think of modern science not in this way, but it does. I mean, even Newton was a great Mason. So
It also
you know,
came out of the monasteries
right.
that were universities.
Yeah,
So
right. The Perugia. Yeah, yeah. The monks got divided. So one group was like, God's creation, let's study it. And we'll learn from it. And the other group was like, no, we shouldn't focus on God's creation. We focus on the soul. And the portion that said, let's focus on God's creation gave birth to the university. And the first one was Perugia. They had different little, buildings for different things. And they said, no, why don't we connect the buildings together and create a university? And it's an ebb and flow, like you're saying, someone might have good intentions and the good guys get in there and the bad guys get in there. So even human society, as far as I can see, and this is what I discovered to lead up to the documentary that I released, is that there are four sources of knowledge. The first one is God. God actually speaks knowledge into the human world. The codes of civilization coming from God. The other is the fallen angels. They have spoken in tremendous bodies of knowledge in the human world. The third one is man himself. Man is a thinking creature. He has reason and he thinks. And the fourth one is a braiding of the first three together. So yes, we can create, let's study God's creation, then we create universities, then humans say, well, forget about God, let's just focus on reason. Another guy says, you know what, I think we should forget about the spiritual and focus on the material. Then these guys come in now that they've emptied us of anything spiritual, and then they haunt us, like the spirit that's been driven out and now can come back because the place is receptive to it again. So this is kind of part of the human patterns of history and society. And today we're entering in a world where it's becoming more and more filled with the material and less filled with the spiritual and with God. So it's really a great ground for these guys to come in. And we were told it will be like the days of Noah, but also it'll be like the days of the Pharaoh of Egypt. That's what's ahead of us. And the battle of the gods and the Passover lamb, who apparently Jesus identified himself as the Passover lamb at the Seder, which was called the Last Supper. He lifted the third cup of wine, which was in the ritual of the Seder, designed to signify the blood of the Passover lamb. And he said, this is my blood. So he injected himself in the story of the Passover and made himself the Passover lamb. And even the Gospels begin with the words of John the Baptist saying, behold, the Lamb of God, referring to the Passover lamb, because John the Baptist was the son of priests on both sides of his family, his dad and his mom. So he was qualified to recognize the Passover lamb. That's how it worked. When the Passover, you brought your lamb to priests 4 days before. And they looked at it, looked it over, and they said, yep, this is no blemish. This qualifies. You can sacrifice this. So it's like, as such a person, John identified it. So the days of Noah and the days of the Pharaoh and the days of Exodus and the days of the abomination of desolation, which is the days of Antiochus Epiphanes, the one who enters the temple and puts the idol of Zeus in the Holy of Holies. This was the days that led to Hanukkah. So the reestablishment of the light of God. And Jesus talked about this. He said, when you see the abomination of desolation, and everyone thought, wait a second, but that was about Antiochus Epiphanes. Daniel talked about it. It was fulfilled already, Jesus. And Jesus says, no, even this is a pattern of a future event. The story of Antiochus Epiphanes and of Hanukkah. So these ancient templates of history in the Bible all point to a time where there is a leader, there is a culture that is void of God, like in the days of Antiochus, not a culture that doesn't know God. The Jews knew God.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hey friends, and welcome once again to another installment of Strange Planet. And if you'd like to get a little deeper into Strange Planet, you know what to do. Just click on the link in the description notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, and you can become a premium subscriber. There are 3 subscription tiers to choose from. You gain access to commercial-free listening, special bonus episodes produced exclusively for premium subscribers. You also receive my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. I just finished watching an incredibly compelling 4-part documentary series on Netflix that's going to debut Wednesday, Feb 28th. It's called The Octopus Murders. And this series tells the story of the mysterious death of American freelance writer Daniel Casolaro in August of 1991. Daniel was found dead in a bathtub in his hotel suite in Martinsburg, West Virginia. His death was ruled a suicide, but friends, family, and colleagues suspect he was murdered. And at the time of his death, Daniel was investigating an incredibly complex, wide-ranging conspiracy involving the Inslaw case. This was a computer software company that contracted with the U.S. Department of Justice to design a piece of software you may have heard of called Promise, which was later alleged to have been used to spy on foreign governments. But the web of intrigue that Daniel uncovered also involved a long list of shadowy figures who were allegedly involved with things like Iran-Contra. This was the state-sanctioned selling of drugs and weapons in support of the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. The October Surprise. This was where the U.S. hostages that were held in Iran, their release was delayed through sort of back-channel secret negotiations in order to help Ronald Reagan defeat Jimmy Carter in the 1980 U.S. presidential election. Now, some 20 years after Danny's death, his investigation is picked up by a photojournalist by the name of Christian Hansen, who, like Danny, is also sucked down this rabbit hole of intrigue. And Christian joins me along with the director of this remarkable series, The Octopus Murders, Zach Treitz. Christian and Zach, welcome to Strange Planet.
So nice to be here. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's difficult to know where to jump in and how to begin because it is such it's an octopus. So many different tentacles here. Let's just start with. I gave a very brief description of who Danny Casolaro was, but Christian, maybe I'll get you to start. How did you become familiar with him, and why did you decide to pick up where sort of he left off?
So that was a very great description of the show, by the way. Good job on that. It's hard to condense all of this. But basically, I was doing research on the private prison industry of all things. And I started looking into this company called the Wackenhut Corporation, which had a private prison concern, one of the first and the second largest in the country. And then just by looking into the Wackenhut Corporation, I realized that Danny was also looking into this company, some of the kind of private espionage and private security and weapons development projects that Wackenhut was involved in the 80s, and significantly on this Native American reservation in the Coachella Valley. So that brought me to Danny Casolaro, his mysterious death, and his exciting adventure of an investigation that he was working on, which I needed to know more about for some inexplicable reason. I was just fascinated by it, and I didn't want to leave. I didn't want the story of Danny to be left in the state that it was in, which was like more questions, really, than anything else.
And Zach, how did you get involved in this project? Had you known Christian prior and sort of got dragged down the rabbit hole with him, and decided, hey, we need to hit record? What happened?
Yeah. So, well, I think it's important to note neither Christian and I had ever done anything like this before. Christian and I were friends from childhood. We were met in middle school. And so I came more from like the fiction, feature film, independent film world. Christian was a photojournalist, and he started talking about this story maybe, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago, whenever it was. And I had no relationship to this story. It was just hearing it from Christian and him kind of bouncing ideas off of me for years. And before we ever talked about making a movie or anything like that, or a documentary. So he would talk to me about it. It got kind of progressively stranger over the years and went into a lot of weird places. And I think, his family and our friends sometimes were wondering about Christian, worried for him that he was really going off. It is a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit warren. And it takes you to very strange places. But we eventually decided to start chipping off little pieces of this together and finding out what was real and what was not. And that was kind of where our journey began together.
Yeah.
I was really hoping Zach and I were basically brothers. We're not related, but Zach's an only child, and I don't have any brothers. I only have sisters, and we just found each other in middle school and high school and have been just best friends, tennis partners. Our social lives are totally intertwined, but and he gives great feedback. But what I meant to say was that no, I totally forgot where I was going with that.
That's all right. Hey, it's easy to lose the thread, and it's easy to lose the thread in the octopus murders because, it seems sometimes like there's nothing but threads. It's like you pull one and all of a sudden everything starts to unravel. It's quite a wild ride. The Octopus Murders, again, debuting on Netflix Wednesday, the 28th of February. And Zach Treitz is the series director, and Christian Hansen, photojournalist, who picked up the thread, or the breadcrumbs, if you will, from the late Danny Casolaro, the freelance writer, who was...
I remember what I was going to say was that Zach initially didn't want to do this. Like, he had finished a feature film that he made called Men Go to Battle. And he put that to bed, and I was like, maybe we could do this as a documentary. I was initially doing it as a book, but I needed support, I needed help, I needed a partner. And he said initially, it's too hard. The octopus can't be made into a film. It can't be made into a documentary. It can't be done. And I was like, I wish he could figure out how to do it, because it'd be awesome. Then like a week later, we met up again, and he had already done all of this planning and kind of beginning the stages of pre-production. So it was like, all right, I guess we're doing this. Okay.
Well, it can be done, and you did it, and it's masterfully done. I mentioned, in the first episode, I sort of assumed, okay, this is all going to be about Promise Software and Inslaw, and that's going to be the be-all and the end-all. But that's one tentacle. And in the end, it's not really about Promise or, Inslaw. But let's start there anyway. Just give us a kind of a primer for my audience who's not familiar with this case that began back in the early 1980s, the very early stages of software development and so forth. Who are the principal?
You could even say it began during the Vietnam War, when the founder of Inslaw, Bill Hamilton, came up with a relational database to make a English to Vietnamese dictionary that was automated and quickly put together. And that the way Bill explains it is that sort of the origin of his fascination with relational databases. He got back from Vietnam, he got out of the NSA, and he formed a nonprofit. I mean, it's really so there's so many parts of the Inslaw story that you get into it. I'm just like, I'm boring myself listening, and I like to hear myself talk. So, that's just like, it's hard to deal with the Inslaw case, because it's ultimately a really complicated legal battle that goes on for 8 years, where Bill eventually makes this private enhanced computer software relational database called Promise for prosecutors, called the Prosecutors Management Information system? Yeah. And basically it seems as though the Department of Justice mysteriously stole the software and the source code, and the federal bankruptcy court judge rules that in fact happened. And it's hard to explain why. Then sources of Bill's start telling him that the software is turning up in other countries, and then significantly this source named Michael Riconosciuto says that there's a back door in the software. That's why there's all this secrecy around it. That's why the software was stolen rather than purchased. I mean, Bill having a background in the NSA, I'm not sure why he wouldn't have gone along with the plan as a vendor. I don't know, for whatever reason. Or I guess there's the Earl Bryan explanation to that question, but which also leads you to the October surprise. This thing is very complicated.
Yeah, it is. It is.
The show is pretty well streamlined.
It's very well structured. And then if I can just kind of move the story along a little bit here as well. Daniel is working with this newsletter called The Computer Age, and his editor, I guess, says, "Hey, why don't you write about Inslaw and what's happening with Inslaw?" And this went to bankruptcy court, as you mentioned, and sort of that where it sort of it all begins, right? For Daniel.
Yeah, that's where Danny enters into it.
Yeah,
I would say, if you want to simplify it a little bit, we sort of took it through the lens of Danny Casolaro, and our story takes place encapsulated by the last year of his life, which in 1990. He meets Bill Hamilton, and Bill Hamilton tells him this whole story about how his software was taken by the Justice Department, and he doesn't know what's going on exactly, but these sources are coming out of the woodwork, and kind of takes him back over the last 8 to 10 years of what's happened to their software company and all of the, pretty powerful people who got involved. Elliot Richardson started fighting on their behalf.
Former Attorney General under Richard Nixon.
Resigned under Nixon during the Watergate, scandal. kind of a legend in the DC, political and legal world. And he's helping Bill Hamilton out with his software case. Got Chuck Work, who we interviewed, who helped him out with his legal case. And so he's telling Danny, I don't know what's exactly going on here, but I've met these people who have told me that there's really something deeper to this thing than just a contract dispute, that it really goes into an area of national security. And so that's how Danny kind of enters it, because he had been a writer for a trade publication about computers for the last 10 years. And Danny is I don't want to pigeonhole him into that, and he's not here to speak about his own path, but he was a poet and a novelist, and thought of himself as some kind of Hemingway-ish character, right? But just like Hemingway, pays the bills writing for news publications, right? And so this was kind of a way for Danny to combine his knowledge of the computer industry with a much bigger, wilder story. It's just, I don't think that he understood how wild it would get.
Right. There was someone who wrote, I think, for the Village Voice, whose name escapes me. He was a journalist from Long Island, and he described the Inslaw case as something that would drive even the most sane person crazy. I don't know if you've heard that quote. I can't remember who said it, but it'll come to me maybe.
And Jim Ridgway wrote about the Inslaw case law for the Village Voice.
Might have been him. Yeah. Did that happen to you, Christian? I mean, I know during the filming, you're kind of candid, and people are saying, or you were asking them, did I go crazy? Am I going crazy? Did it actually have that effect on you?
Yeah. I mean, the Inslaw case, and then also I think the thing that really set me off the most was learning pretty early on about the CIA's relationship with drug trafficking. That just appalled me and floored me. I knew nothing about it, and I kept vigorously researching it to prove it not true. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that was happening, in my name, as a citizen of the United States. I thought it was disgusting and appalling. And, the more I learned about it, the more I learned that it was real. And then I'm just like, oh, well, if they're doing that, what else is going on? And that's sort of like what really kind of spiraled me out. So I sort of vetted, went through this process of vetting, like, different allegations that kind of started crossing the transom, and found some of them to be probably more on the bunk side, and some of them worth considering. But I don't know for sure, but I basically just familiarized myself with the milieu, but focused on the the Iran-Contra scandal and the October surprise and the various aspects of Danny's research to better understand, what he was looking into.
Right, because these names that started popping up in association with the Inslaw case and the Promise software, and we'll get into, this small Indian reservation in Indio, California, these names keep popping up in connection with Iran-Contra, the October surprise, and other sort of well-known conspiracies involving the CIA, the NSA, other intelligence, the alphabet groups, and some of the great conspiracies of the 20th and 21st century. We'll take a quick time out. Zach Treitz is the director, and Christian Hansen, photojournalist, starring in the Netflix documentary series, The Octopus Murders, debuting Wednesday, Feb 28th. Back with more of our conversation in 3 minutes. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship. Enjoy the complete unedited episodes and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. I should point out there's a Canadian connection for my Canadian listeners. One of the first, I guess, verifications, I guess, that Promise software was being sold to foreign governments was they uncovered that the RCMP and CSIS, which is Canada's CIA, they had purchased Promise. So I guess if the allegations are
not from Inslaw,
not from Inslaw, but from the Department of Justice or one of the intermediaries that are,
yeah.
I'd love to just tell that story really quick.
Yeah, please.
We glance on it, in the show, but for the Canadian audience especially, I think it's just a funny, weird kind of way into this, which is that the Hamiltons, who owned Inslaw, this software company, they get a letter from just kind of like a form letter from the Canadian government saying, hey, we have your software, Promise, and it's Canadian law that any software that we have, we need the operating manual in both English and French. So please send us the French operating manual. And the Hamiltons, I think their daughter, Patty, who worked for the company, received this letter. They all get together and they're just like, what are they talking about? We haven't sold this software to anybody in Canada. So they write for clarification and they're like, no, it's in, something like, 900 offices or something here. And they're like, oh, not according to our records, And so they try to dig into this and it seems like what happened was that some sort of these agencies, the RCMP, perhaps CSIS, had at least something called Promise, and an intern, some sort of low-level functionary, just kind of saw like, we have this software, and they looked up like who makes the software, and they said, oh, Inslaw, and they just kind of wrote, just
innocently, yeah,
just wrote them out of the blue, and then kind of. I think Patty, the daughter, traveled up to Canada, tried to get to the bottom of this thing. And they're like, no, never mind. Don't worry about it. We don't have this software. This is all just a clerical error. And, and that kind of set them off on this. Just, it seems like you were pretty insistent that you had it when you sent us those letters, it's just a funny world. I think, later on, we don't get this in the documentary. There was a whole RCMP and investigation into what had happened. We'd love to follow up. Actually, there's a whole story to tell. We couldn't really tease it out because the people who were involved did not want to talk about it, or were hard to get a hold of. So there is a whole fascinating Canadian angle to this thing.
Yeah, well, come on up and investigate. Lord knows we can use some serious journalists up here. And
Ari Ben Minash, the former Israeli intelligence officer who we introduce briefly in episode 2, who factors pretty large in the octopus and Inslaw story. He lives in Canada.
Ah, okay. So it seems that this Promise software, and again, I don't want to, get too deep into the reads with Promise, but it was morphed into some kind of surveillance. I mean, originally it was designed to help prosecutors, figure out, cross-reference. If they were prosecuting some figure, they could find out, oh, he's also being or she's being prosecuted in this jurisdiction and so forth, rather than just relying on happenstance and a coincidence that a fellow prosecutor says, oh, I know that person. It was just bringing order to crime fighting and the whole legal system. But then it gets morphed into some kind of a surveillance system through a trap door, which is kind of the subject of episode 2, allowing the governments who are buying this software, they're getting spied upon by who's ever, tethered to the other end of promise, whether it's the Department of Justice or the State Department or the NSA or whomever. So that brings us into this mysterious figure, Michael Riconosciuto, who Daniel refers to as the Danger Man. Just kind of give us a quick thumbnail sketch of, I think, one of the most interesting characters I've come across in a long time.
Yeah. He's a child. Michael Riconosciuto is a child science prodigy from Tacoma, Washington. And his father's politically connected. He was on some boards, and he had a advertising company. His name comes up a few times. Actually, Michael's father's name and advertising company comes up in the Warren Commission hearings in the investigation of JFK, which is so wild. We don't even get into that. This guy, Fred Chrisman, was Michael's father. Whatever, Zach, don't. People that listen to the show are gonna
always
love
the director. Always the director.
Play the Oscar song next time. Sorry.
That's okay.
Whatever. Okay. No. All right, Zach, you talk if you don't want me to.
But I was just saying that Michael enters this story through talking to Bill and then meeting Danny, and Danny finds out this information that Christian's talking about, and looks into his history and finds that Michael, who alleges that he was at this Native American reservation in the Coachella Valley, and he says that he had pirated the Promise software out there for this company that Christian was talking about, Wackenhut, and he really was out there. I mean, that's a fact. But Michael has many different stories about what he was up to in that era, and I think that a lot of our research and investigation was trying to figure out what was real and what was not from what Michael had told Danny, but also what Michael had told Christian over the years, because they became correspondents, right, Christian? I mean, Michael went to prison in 1991, in March of 1991, and Danny had visited him there in prison when Michael had just come out with an affidavit alleging all this stuff that had happened on this reservation. And then 26 years later, Christian and I went to pick him up from that prison and get the rest of the story from him.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful scene. He's been in jail for 26 years. He gets in the car. I guess his cousin picks him up. You're along for the ride, and he wants to get out of there. Just get out of this area and so forth. Then he skips his bail hearing? Not his bail hearing. His parole hearing, and decides he feels, I guess, safer to go back to jail rather than show up for this hearing. But Riconosciuto, as I say, just what a riddle this guy is. He's got a background in making meth, if I remember correctly. He's got a huge background in chemistry. He makes meth. He's got a background in lasers. It seems like all of these intelligence...
He had an underwater lab in Tacoma. I mean, the guy's had quite a life.
Right. So all of these... drug lab. Yeah, so to avoid detection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he has all of these... He's like this... I don't know, kind of a twisted Renaissance man, and all of the alphabet agencies want a piece of this guy, presumably. So they get him, whoever they are, to develop this trap door for Promise. That sounds like it's the gun running and the drug running. Promise is used as another cash cow to fund their black operations. Is that kind of a fair assessment?
Can I just throw in one word, which is allegedly, right? Because a lot of our film and Christian's research and our research was into trying to parse what is real and what's not inside of this world. And so we take this through the lens of Danny Casolaro, who was receiving all this information. And I think we're retracing Danny's story and hearing the same allegations that he was hearing from people like Michael and Bill and all these other sources. So I just want to throw that word out there because, there's truth and there are lies. And then we discuss why those things are kind of intermingled sometimes from our
Earl Bryan and Robert Maxwell, who are these media and industry moguls who allegedly sold promise around the world as sort of a proxy for the U.S. government, and in Robert Maxwell's case, the Israeli government. We don't have receipts from them, just describing these supposed deals with these foreign nations. So we're not going to say for sure that it happened.
Right, that's the problem. You don't have the receipts, and I guess that obviously led to a great deal of frustration for Daniel, who was trying to write this book, took it to New York to get a book publishing deal, and that's what the publishers were asking for, right? We need the receipts. We need more proof before we can, he desperately needed Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hello, friends, and welcome once again to another episode of Strange Planet. And if you'd like to get a little deeper into Strange Planet, you might want to consider becoming a premium subscriber. It's real easy to do. Just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. You gain access to commercial-free listening. As much as we love our sponsors, it's sometimes nice just to listen without interruption. You also gain access to special bonus episodes that are produced exclusively for premium subscribers twice a month. And you get a free subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum. Again, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. All right, on this episode, part 3 in an ongoing series on healing through frequency. And what I'll do right now is draw your attention to parts 1 and 2, and they're real easy to find wherever you're subscribing to this podcast. Episode 990 was part 1, the star tetrahedron, the flower of life, and healing frequencies. Part 2 was episode 1004, healing through frequency. And on today's episode, we're going to continue on with this conversation. In parts 1, we talked about what the ancients understood about the blueprints, or the blueprint for all life, and the significance of the ancient symbols, the flower of life and the star tetrahedron, what the ancients knew or seemed to understand about the atom. As amazing as that may sound, the star tetrahedron and the flower of life were 2-dimensional representations of the atom, of course, which is the blueprint of all life, and as well about the healing power of sacred geometry, frequency, and vibration. And then in the second part, in episode 1004, we talked about sort of where we are right now in terms of our health and our environment, and how our current environment is negatively impacting our body's ability to heal itself, because of the interference between, let's say, the healing frequencies of the earth interacting with the healing frequencies or the frequencies of our own bodies. We have the Earth's torus field and we have the human torus field, and ideally they sort of interact, and that is the key to the body healing itself. But of course, again, through toxic food and this electronic smog that we now live in with 5G and 6G and 7G probably just around the corner, all of these things interfering with this healing process. All right. That being said, let's get to part 3. Brent Knudsen is a self-made entrepreneur. His technologies have now been in use within the wellness industry for years with amazing results and people benefiting from pain reduction, improved injury recovery, anti-aging properties, and improved health. He's passionate about frequency and quantum field technologies and excited to bring these technologies to the world at large. And he is the founder and CEO of 4hourbees.com and purewavecell.com. Brent, welcome back. How are you?
Oh, really good to be here. This is what we've been waiting for. This is the exciting bee day. We're really looking forward to going out and showing you what we're doing now with all this stuff. So glad to be here.
Jake Cunningham is a wellness warrior and tech trailblazer, also co-founder of 4RBs.com and purewavecell.com. Jake, welcome back.
Thanks, Richard. You're in the right place at the right time, everyone. I'm excited. This is what it's about. We're excited to look what's happening here in the future on everything we've accumulated and researched and have put into action now. Definitely check out those previous 2 episodes on Richard's channel here. And it's an honor to be back, Richard. Thank you for having us.
Again, part 1 was episode 990. Part 2 was 1004. Here we are, episode, well, I've lost count, but it'll be out. It's in the thousands. We crossed the 1000 episode.
Lots.
Congratulations. Lots. I mean, like I said,
Yeah.
That's impressive, man. Consistency over time, right? Yeah.
So let's just back up a little bit and talk about what we talked about in episode 1004, part 2 on frequency healing and the challenges that we face. We talked about the frequencies that the Earth generates, the Earth's torus field, and how these frequencies are supposed to interact with the human body and its torus field. Tesla used to talk about, there's nothing that couldn't be fixed with a good 7-mile walk, because he liked to just get out and interact with the Earth's natural healing frequencies, right? But now we live in an environment where that's being interfered with. So that's maybe where we can begin and how we address that with modern technology, taking what the ancients knew, combining that with cutting edge technology that you're both involved with, and how we can reestablish that relationship between the Earth and our bodies.
Okay, that's a great place to start, because and really, in recapping, it's easy to do. The natural frequency of the Earth is around 7 hertz. That's what it is. And they know this. And I'm just going to be brief. They know this because when they first sent the astronauts out into space in the 50s, their whole bodies started to ache. They couldn't take it, and so they realized there was a real problem to go outside of the Earth's frequency. They didn't really realize what that was. So then they started to track it. NASA was brilliant at this. The research NASA has done on what's called pulse electromagnetic frequencies, or the Toro or Earth frequency, that Tesla was talking about 100, or 80 years ago. They started replicating it, so that's why it's not a problem. They recreate it. So that, Richard, then it validifies everything. This is not something that's kind of speculative, or it is what it is. And basically it is, the cells respond to it. Not only our cells, but animals, insects, plants, everything on the world. So, and it comes from 2 things: the geomagnetic frequency of the inner Earth, the spinning and the magma, and the Schumann frequency, which is the lightning strikes. And people don't understand really that lightning strikes the earth 25 million times per day. So even though, we only see it rarely, so that's why we don't know that. So they mix that, and that's giving us the frequency. And so that's where we were coming from in our fascination with recreating it and how we would do this. So that leads back to our first show and into the second show and into here. And then on top of that, it also then as you had pointed to, Richard, is modern technology, as great as it is and wonderful in the way that it helps us communicate and helps our lives. On the other side of it, it interferes with this frequency of the Earth natural frequency. That's just what it does. It interferes with it. And so that's why we have different complications that are coming from that. And that affects the insects, that affects the bees, that affects the animals, and it affects us. So all we're doing is that we're recreating a situation where we can help the cells to immune boost, because if the cells are healthy, the body's healthy for all animals. And that's what we're really talking about. So we're just, and today is bringing, rather than in the previous shows, we talked about the challenges, which we have, and we talked about the technology. But today we're going to talk about what we're doing with it, the solutions. And I think that's what everybody really gets interested in, is like, hey, this is all well and good, and that's good information, but what are we doing? Like, how are we solving this, or in our own ways, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So that's what's so much fun. And we brought our 4RB shirts, and we're going to get into talking about it. I'll leave it there as we start to go, and we're going to get into how we got to where we are now. Okay.
Right. We're going to get into energy medicine and quantum field generators and all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
Jake, do you want to add?
Yeah, well, it just reminded me, there's this amazing quote that many of the listeners, I'm sure, have heard before. There's two great scientists in our history in the evolution of understanding energy, and one is the great Albert Einstein. A quote is simple, and it's, everything in life is a vibration. And we'll get into that in more detail. We talked about that in the previous episodes. Also, you mentioned Nikola Tesla and his great, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So this is not new information. This is just new to tapping in and how we apply it, like what Brent just said, and what we're going to talk about, how we are. And there's many different ways people are applying these and have over the years. We talked in the previous episode about how the diagnostics, the imaging, the measurement, the analyzing has been used for decades now in discovery of looking through the body, what you can't see with the naked eye. And what's so amazing about this is talking about the torus field. There's another really amazing quote by this Arthur Clarke. If you know, Arthur C. Clarke said, the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. It's what we are doing is starting to connect the dots with what is not seen in the five senses. It's this aspect of this fifth element, or there's the elements, and then there's that fifth element, the PEMF, the frequency world that holds us all together. So again, that's context of what we're talking in, but ultimately nature is something that always it finds that perfect, beautiful balance. And so we're talking tech, but we're ultimately talking what we've found to restore harmony and synchronization with nature. This is something that is simple, and simplicity, Richard and Brent, is not easy to discover and honor and respect. Apple is a great example of tech. They've made technology more user-friendly and simple. It's a way humans relate to it. In a way, we've discovered a really simplistic way to relate to this amazing grounding energy. And what we're doing and is just really exciting, because what we're able to do is work in a field where results are being shown without the human condition interfering. And I'll let Brent kind of talk about that. That's what the whole thing around the bees, and we'll get into that more, but it's exciting, because when you're able to witness and be a part of something that, and we've been doing this a long time. I grew up, read my bio later or whatever. Since 9-10 years old, I've been working in the frequency medicine realm, and to see something so effective and so simplistic, and also not based off an electrical outside current and power source. We're talking geomagnetic frequency, pure wave, pure magnetic frequency, not pulsating electronic magnetic frequency, which we love. We love all the devices. We love all the technologies that are coated with software, hardware, and mats, and those are all have a place. But the source energy is something that we've discovered in the formula. We haven't discovered it. We played with it. We formulated this to get results. So it's exciting. But it's different than the pulsating. Mentioned the PEMF, very powerful technology. Astronauts, NASA used to help ground and get people back to the norm. But the pure wave is something I'm excited to talk about with everybody, because that's an application of what we're talking about in the real world today. What we're finding results in. Go ahead, Richard.
So we go right back to the beginning, actually, just for a second here, because we talked about in the first part about the star tetrahedron and the flower of life, and how they are those symbols. We see them everywhere in ancient civilizations. We see this on the flag of Israel, the star tetrahedron, and we now realize that they were two-dimensional representations of the atom. So that's where sort of this technology focuses on, right? Is replicating the flower of life, the star tetrahedron.
Right, Richard. It's great. That perfect lead into it, because so in order to manipulate frequencies in many different ways for whatever technologies you're using, it's all on mathematic algorithms, but really it's in geometric form. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll show you as I talk. We get into specifically what we use. So because I was so fascinated with geometry and what it really meant to us, which was about really changing frequency, this is where our journey began. It really began after I came out of fintech and went into starting to connect with people like Jake, who doing their whole life dealing with frequency. That was not my background, but the math was. So what I was fascinated, as we talked about earlier, was why those particular shapes or geometric shapes were so important as a construct to build from. And then that way, how do we manipulate that frequency? And that's where magnetism came into, to manipulate the frequency into an algorithm that the cells responded to. So we started off saying, well, why those shapes? Well, because those shapes, just like in our first episode, that's how we all started. All animals, insects. Just so your audience, just to remind me again, the first thing all of us did as a one-celled object is we went into the flower of life in the first 6 steps. So our cells now respond to that language. It's a mathematical language, but that's what they respond to. So that's where I started, and then met all the wonderful people on my journey, and Jake being one of the most magnificent parts of that. And we started this back in roughly 2012 is when we met, and I was right in the midst of getting this concluded about the mitosis and cells and how we were going to do this. But I was also building a facility known as the Crysalis, which again, your audience will see. We're showing this. And that was an ultimate facility that blocked out everything, radio waves, microwaves, everything. And we did all our testing into there. And it was a journey in itself. And all the cool stuff that Jake and I went through when I was building that.
This
and
was
then
like a
testing it.
geodesic. This was a habitat, like shaped geodesic dome.
Yes, it's a geodesic sphere. So, and here's the difference. This is the difference. And thanks, Richard, for saying is a dome. A dome has two risers like this, and then the dome goes like this. A sphere, it continues into a complete ball, right? So as we show it, and we will, we'll have all the visuals to show you this and the building and so forth, so people can visually see this because it's hard to describe. And why that was important is it allowed the frequencies to continue, and it was special spleening to ground and bring everything out of harmful frequencies. So all those distractions that we talk about was all eliminated in there. So when we did our testing and following the geometry, but when we were going through it, attracted people from all over. I would have people coming. My neighbors went, crazy because, they're like, what are you building? And they were all around and coming in, and people were coming from different countries and stuff. And the results of what was going on inside was spectacular and so funny. Some people would come into the facility and they'd be, laughing hysterically. Other people would be having visions. It was unbelievable, the stories that we went through. So Jake and I started. I'm just trying to get a little handle here so we can grab this.
It was actually a modern holodeck for the Star Trek fans. It was like a holodeck. I used to go up there and take my vision quest to go create the next chapter of what we wanted to do. But go ahead, Brent.
So then Jake and I started on this journey. We took what we called the pure wave cell, and we might as well do this right now. So the pure wave cell, basically on the inside, looks like this, if everybody can see that. Now I'm going to separate just a second here. Okay, so there's your flower of life that we were talking about. And now this is set into the magnetics here. And that goes into what it looks like as a finished product, which, as Richard said, fits in the palm of your hand.
Hold it in front of you with the blur. Brent, just hold it in front of you.
How's that?
There you go.
There you go. Or more importantly, like that. But look inside. Right? So what we did now is we took, try and get that. There we go. So we took that shape that I'd spend so much research on, and then I had to get the magnets, which I'll go back to here, to absolutely fit perfectly. For example, this can't be out one fraction. It has to be exactly like that. And that's how I get what I talk about, that locked on frequency, right? That algorithm. And the cells respond. If it's off even a fraction of an inch, it doesn't produce the same talking point to the cells that does. So I just in explaining how exact it is, right?
So these magnets are neodymium. Can you explain what that means?
So the difference between a neodymium magnet and general magnets or basic magnets will lose what's known as a gauge rate, which is its strength. It will lose it within 8 months to a couple of years, and then they're weakened, and they're really not. A neodymium magnet will hold that gauge frequency for minimum up to 20 years. So it's highly powerful, very, very, very potent. And it's important that, so each one of the magnets that are in the pure wave cell is a 4,800 gauge. So if you add it times 12, we're in that 48,000 range of strength that it radiates out. So when I'm showing you this, it's what's inside here bonded together that radiates out. And this is what has such an effect on food pathogens, pain, inflammation, because really all it's doing, it's not magic. What it's doing is it's going to the cells, building them up. It's affecting them just the same way as negative frequencies affect the cells. Like, for example, if I expose the average human to what we know as radiation, right? You don't feel anything. Not today, but in 2 weeks, your cells start to disintegrate, right? You start to get sick. Right? Well, but you didn't feel anything. So it's the same way as that when you're in front of the pure wave. So it's not like you're feeling something or it's, but what it is over time, it's doing the opposite. It's building the cells up. So when we were back to this testing, we were going through all this testing, and people are coming back and going, wow, this is happening. My side, it's taken away this. I put it under my pillow. My nightmares are going away. That was the first I'd ever heard of that. So we were going through I literally had someone that went and said this. And I go, geez, and so then I had another associate that said his young boy who was 12, he said he has nightmares every night. And I never heard of that. But I said, because this other person had told me, Dennis, I said, try it. And of course it did the same thing. So it was, but that's not what it was designed to do, or anything. It affects everybody in different ways. So then we thought, let's send it to a food lab. So we sent it to Pathogenia, which is down in Quebec, and they're specifically a food lab. That they're not a lab for anything else, just food. And so we tested raspberries and chicken and stuff that you get naturally from the store as food shoppers. And radically it was changing. Like we tested over 12 different pathogens like E. coli, Listeria, Strophanophysis, all this kind of stuff. And it was reducing it in certain levels and then eliminating in others, because it was just going in and neutralizing frequency to frequency, just like, everybody's aware of like sound canceling ear like headphones. So it's just sound canceling sound. That's why it's not there. Well, we do the same with pathogens. So with that frequency, right?
So you're placing the chicken or the raspberries or whatever food item in very close proximity to this cell, this pure wave cell.
Correct. Actually, Richard, we put the plate right on top of it. So, so now picture it like this. I showed you what this is, but now picture it like this. And the plate of food goes on top, and it goes right through that food. And it was only 5 minutes. It wasn't like for hours. It was placed on the cell for no more than 5 minutes. That was the testing. Now, we have all this on our website and all these reports. So I don't want to drag on to it. People can go and read them and see them, but it was phenomenal. I'm just trying to explain the journey that we went through, because it was these ups and downs. And so Richard, we're sitting around going, what are we going to do with this stuff, right? Like, we're getting all this data in, and people are saying things, but remember, now we go to the second segment of your show, right? When you start going out medically to the world, look out, right? So you start making claims or saying it's doing this or it's doing that. We know what happens with that. So I'm sitting back. Now, I was in Owen Sound, Ontario on Georgian Bay. That's where the Crysalis building was. Jake's in Michigan, so he used to come up. He's down in Michigan. And so I said to Jake, I really don't want to go down this path of, the medical of saying to people, yeah, it's curing this or doing that or doing this. But I said, and this happened in about 2014. I said, look at all this stuff that's going on with the bees. How we were all hearing about, we're losing bee population and these kind of things.
Colony collapse, they call it. Colony collapse.
Bee collapse, right? So I said to Jake, hey, look, why don't I go and do some studies with some bee people? Let's see how the bees respond, because the bees, they don't have any placebo and they don't lie. Like, they're just going to do what they're going to do, right? Whereas, you could have 500 humans and it's still like, who knows, right? So the first thing I did was I found a holistic beekeeper, that didn't have, that ran a certain way, by the name of Christine, and she had 12 hives. So what I did is I went down with the pure wave cells, and I said, Christine, let's separate 6 hives from each other, roughly about 100 yards apart, in the same area. So that
you've got a control group and an experimental group. Control group.
Exactly.
Okay, Brent, we're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back and we'll pick it up there with Brent Knudsen and Jake Cunningham. 4 Hour Bees.
Yeah, I'm getting excited.
The number 4, the letter R, bees, 4rbees.com for more information. Back with more of our conversation right after these. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. And we are back with Jake Cunningham and Brent Knutson. They are co-founders of 4rbees.com. The link is in the episode notes. It's the number 4, the letter R, 4rbees.com. So you took these pure wave cells to the beekeeper, Christine, and you've separated 12 hives. You've got a control group, 6 hives, and an experimental group,
Yep.
6 hives. Take it from there. What happened?
Okay, yeah, no, this is where it gets exciting. So and this would be in 215. So I'm giving you the date times too, right? So it was roughly about end of May, June 215. So right in that zone. So we went down and did that. Why that was important is because then the bees were all foraging on the same food. So everything was identical. So the 6 hives that didn't have the pure wave cells, and then the 6 hives that did, everything else was the same. So you couldn't say they didn't have food or whatever they were doing. It was nothing short of phenomenal in August what happened. The hives, and again, we have all the reporting on this, but we've gone way on from this. But so the hives that had the pure wave cells were producing per hive about between 200 to 250 pounds of honey per hive. The ones that didn't have it were somewhere around 90 to 100 and struggling. So, and then the other thing is about mites, because mites are a problem where they can get in and then they start to affect the immune system of the bees. That's what the mites are a problem. No mites in the ones that had the pure wave cells into it, like almost like 1 or 2, and the other ones had regular mites with what they were doing, and we actually showed what it looked like. So I went, wow, okay. Now that was one example. So then I thought, okay, Jake, this would be a way that we can go down this path and start doing more and more of this, in which we did, as well as other studies. So this is in 215, 216. Then we started to get more development into what other beekeepers are. Then we sort of hit into COVID came along. And so I sat down through that time period and said to Jake, let's put together a business plan for a new company that we decided would be called 4RBs. And I said, let's put it together. And when we come out of this fog that we're in here, like the pandemic, so we said, this is a positive thing to do. We got down and did it. And then we came out and we formulated the company in April of 22 is when we actually incorporated. But I already had a number of commercial beekeepers now. Now I had people who had 800 hives and 600 hives. And then we went into those and we started separating entire yards from each other. And again, the results were phenomenal. And last spring, so I'll come current. Last spring, it was so abundant in the hives that had the pure wave cell that they had to split almost every single hive. And this is all on our site from the beekeeper, right, so that you can see it. And then we the other yards were nominal compared to what this was doing.
Typically after typically after the winter, you have this is when we get into the colony collapse, and most of the bees are gone after the winter.
Yes.
What's the pure wave cell doing in terms of the survival rate of the bees?
Yeah. Well, and that was the point. Every single hive that it had, they pretty much had to split. They were overabundance with bees.
Right.
Like, so they were, and we show we film that and show the visuals on that. and and that's when we realized, this is what I wanted to say, and then I'm going to let Jake tell the stories of other stuff, that how we developed. But we realized, and this is so important, everybody out there knows that we have to save the bees, and it's not just the pure wave cell. We set up food sources, we do seeding for the beekeepers, we also provide queens and doing different things. But what we realized, in order to really save the bees, we have to save the small beekeeper. They control 95% of all bees. So they struggle financially in the sense of what their costs are and what they have to do and what they're up against, like pesticides and different things and areas. So we come in as a company and support all of that, not just the pure wave cell. We come in and do that. So that's what we had to develop over the last couple of years. And Jake was a big part of that in the, how we did the brandings, how we got out and did things, because now it's really getting exciting because we're getting ready now to take it to the world, right? This is really the next step where the public gets involved, and what they do is they help support us, which we provide all of this at no cost to the beekeeper. I need to remember to say that the beekeepers spend nothing with us. And so that is why the 4RBs is so important to them, and we're building them. But then I'm going to let Jake talk about this. Another byproduct came out of that, because the honey that came out of those hives that had the cell in it is some of the best honey in the world by far, and what we do. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jake, and let you talk about what we're doing with 4RBs and the journey once we got that going.
No, absolutely. And just to take a half step back, is the timeline is really important, because like you mentioned, Richard, the season, this is not a quick fix. This is not a quick measurement type study you can do where you throw them in before a spring unpacking and measure results. It has to go through seasons. You have to go through to see the success after the hives have gone through a cold winter. Quick story, there's a beekeeper locally that's part of our research in our beekeeping program. And we just checked on Sunday his hives with an amazing infrared camera, just to play around. And we're always playing with these tools. And I can get you the pictures to show the audience. We were able to see how healthy that hive was, how healthy the bees were. We had to take the top off, but they're all sleeping, moving around. And I'll tell you, I just want to mention to the audience and remind people to do your own research. We've all heard of Save the Bee programs. But why is it so profound? Do you, the listener right now, like to eat? Period.
Like a need. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, do you like variety? There's a great movie. It's like the Bee movie. It's a cartoon animation. It has a scene, everybody, where the bees all go on vacation. The bees take a break. They're all just hanging out in the hive, and the flowers die, the produce dies. So all you listeners who like to go down to Whole Foods right now and go to that salad bar, or you like to go down to the farmer's market and you want to be as organic and healthy, or just have it would affect every way of life for us as human beings. Back to what Brent said about why the bees was this amazing, beautiful relationship, and the beekeepers is we're able to impact everyone's well-being indirectly by supporting this amazing species, this bee population, to support the good. And I'll tell you, like Brent said, the bees do not have the human condition of subjectivity, because the queen bee didn't pay the queen bee didn't pay enough attention to them as a child bee, and now they don't want to go work because
right.
No, they're programmed, they're beautiful to go out in nature's universe. And I just want to mention one thing before we talk about the honey, how that helps support the mission, all this. The bees are what the cells are doing, what the technology is doing is not like the chemical spray. Part of colony collapse is the weakening of the bee's immune system.
Yeah.
Everything we talked about in the last episode, please do yourself a favor, review that. The harmful EMFs, the pollution, all the distractions that are coming at us, they're weakening the immune system, allowing the sickness, the parasites, the virus, the bacteria, all the stuff to stick and affect us. The bee is no different. Those varroa mites that Brent referenced that were literally gone with just a few still there multiple times is the bees' energy, their frequency is resonating, for which the mites do not attach. The mites aren't the immunity, the strength is not allowing the distraction, the parasite, the influence to affect and cause them to get sick, to die, colony collapse. So it's not, does that make sense? It's
Sure.
raising the immunity, the vibration of the beast, of the home, of the harmony. And one more thing is, imagine a bee coming in. And again, like humans, we measure. That's why I stated those quotes. Everything is energy, everything's frequency, you guys. You're either resonating right now with this information or you're not. Hey, and if you're not, that's fine. We're not here to convince or sell anything. We're here to share with you these universal truths we've discovered that you can tap into or not. It's your choice. But and I'll move on because I'll go on and on about this, and I'm passionate about it because it's profound. Of the beekeeper is the steward of these, and that's the relationships we cultivate over time. It takes. So what's unfolded, like Brent mentioned, is as we were formulating this amazing business plan that was a win-win-win for the community, for the beekeeper, for the bees, for our excitement to have energy in the company to be able to do these things, is this beautiful relationship. And the label of Pure Wave honey that's treated with the technology, the Crysalis system, which we didn't talk a lot about, but that's okay. I mean, we can't talk about everything. The Crysalis C is actually the technology that the Ark of the Covenant that actually the cells came out of. That's treated in the production process. But the honey, this Pure Wave honey, is actually comes from the hives for which are part of our research. So, and by our members and the community and and you, the supporters, we're able to support the beekeeper with the technology at fair trade market value. We support them with the honey purchase we produce, bottle, and people are able to then access, and the income is able to allow us to generate and produce more of the neodymium rare earth magnets, which is a whole nother topic. Those are that process, you guys do your own due diligence. We also source that as very consciously as possible. Rare earth magnets are used in electric batteries right now for EAV vehicles. Every computer electric device, highly demand in the world right now of what's happening. We acknowledge and know that. But now the way people support us and how we support the bees and how we give back is, like Brent mentioned, by offering this amazing, and you have to try it, you guys. You have to try this honey. It's different. The testimonials are off the charts with there's something different. It's raw creamed. It's like butter. It's not like a honey bear because that's processed with heat that makes the honey very smooth. But through the sales of the honey and the Pure Wave cells, people who do order those, and we're able to fund these public events like wildflower planting parties, because again, the bees, another part of the bees, you guys, if they don't have the food source, if they don't have the local food source to go out and pollinate and come, they're coming back with no energy. They're dying. They need food. They need their resource too. So through the support, we're able to then reinvest in getting more cells into the beekeepers and building those rapport and relationship. And for the listeners who want more information, you got to go to the site. If you need to contact us, fill out a contact form. We're just we're
There it
just
is.
excited.
RVs.
Yeah,
More
we're
RVs.
excited about this because it's growing really organically. This is grassroots, you guys. Grassroots to the core, because the nature of it is nature's timing. You can't force that, Richard. We can't force the beat. Can you answer today, right now, Mr. B? Does this work or not? No, they're going to show through action if it does. At the same time, we have to be selective of the beekeepers we work with because it's a long-term relationship. So for everyone out there who wants information on that program, you got to contact us and there's an interview process because, for example, if your bees and your hives are right next to a 5G tower and you put a cell in and you say, this cell's a bunch of bullshit, guys, you're a joke. Well, wait a second here. We have to take a look at the greater environment. This is one part. This isn't the end all, but this is an amazing support system for it. And what we're realizing with the human market is that's the future. We're not going there today, but the testimonials we're getting are just, we can't ignore. At the same time, we're really defining and making an impact on the local level, helping support.
Right.
And I want to acknowledge something
go
too.
ahead. Go ahead.
Just
Jake.
one more thing. I acknowledge it's super important to have honey and use it for the immune system building. The value of honey is tremendous, and local honey is really important because it's using the local pollination for what that individual pollens are exposed to for the individual. It's also very nice for diversity to have honey from different parts of the world. So both are important. Manuka honey, for example, comes from across the ocean. Why is that beneficial? Because those pollinating plants, flowers are powerful too. So both are important. I get the question quite a bit. Well, wait, why is your honey special? Shouldn't I just have local? No, both are important. So go ahead, Richard. I just wanted to make that. I will acknowledge that.
Right. No, I just wanted to sort of reset and kind of provide a bit of a summary there, but we'll take a time out. We'll come back and we'll do that. And we'll continue to talk about how these pure wave cells are saving the pollinators. Without the pollinators, life does not exist. So we'll get back to that when we come back with Brent Knudsen and Jake Cunningham for our bees. The number 4R, the letter R, bees.com. Again, the link in the episode notes. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Brent Knudsen is with us. He is the founder, CEO of 4rbs.com and purewavecell.com and Purewave Honey. Jake Cunningham, also a wellness warrior, tech trailblazer, co-founder of 4rbs.com and purewavecell.com, Purewave Honey. So just to sort of recap, you've got these neodymium magnets in a very precise array that are in a line with the ancient symbols of the flower of life or the star tetrahedron. They are these neodymium magnets are placed inside this casing, and it's hexagonal. It's hexagonal in shape.
This is the
Yes.
inside,
Yep.
and then hexagonal.
And
right? We just
there's another square case for beekeepers, same exact
Yep.
internal
Right.
design though.
And you
Just-
mentioned, Jake, you mentioned, we didn't get into this too much, but I mean, we can maybe talk about this another time. The Crysalis. This is the quantum field
Oh yeah.
generator that is basically charging, if I understand correctly, it's charging these neodymium magnets. Do I have that right?
No, it's not quite charging. It actually has it's think of it as a table that has this 3 cylinders with the roll, like a roll of
Yes.
quarters.
Yes.
These magnet cells that Brent has and showed. So it's not charging it. What it's doing is the concepts that Brent talked about, that everything is geometry. Yet the frequency is an atom is geometry with magnetism with motion. What the Crysalis E is, it puts those 3 components together, and that field has been measured up to 200 yards. This thing is not it's not something we sell. This is part of our proprietary process. It's actually, though, the mother of the cells. The cells are the individual that we are able to then apply in the bees, apply with the food research, apply with the pain management, circulation stuff. We're testing the blood, the different things. So that, I hope I did that justice, Brent. Again, that Crysalis is a different...
you did, and
Yeah.
what'll help you out too, it'll help out Richard and Jake, is when you go to the site purewavehoney.com, you'll see it. You'll see it in action. We treat the honey with that, and but rather than try to describe it to you, you can actually go there and see it. It's well explained. And that's the best way, because you won't be able to visualize it. But yes, that is what it did, Richard, and that is why the honey is the Crysalis E stands for energizer, and basically it energizes the honey. Again, on that video, it'll show how we do that and what makes the honey different. So that we'll leave that to that.
I have to tell a story. I have to tell a story about the Crysalis E and the geodesic sphere. So, okay. This was in the middle of the geodesic sphere. Brent was having people visit. We were doing research in there and testing the frequency. Well, I went up with my wife on a weekend, and I brought at the time, Case was only 3 years old, my son. And we went in there, had our time. We had our business meeting, so on. But through the light therapy, that was part of this amazing structure, that is a part of this amazing structure, and the sound, there would be this point of going through the colors, and then it would go dark and silent. It would go, but the frequency was generating. Well, a normal 2-3-year-old that wouldn't be fun for them. The dark, I'm talking pitch dark, where there is no light whatsoever. And we went through this, and my son was on my lap, and I was able to hold him and spend this time connecting with him that he remembers today. He remembers that moment, that reset. And when I was laughing earlier about calling it the holodeck. Another time I was there, I'd go up and I would manifest and intend and create what the next chapter of my life would be, and then go manifest it. So reality is merely an illusion, and what we create is what we intend and what we focus on. It created this environment and reset to be able to do that. And it was a game changer. That was a moment I realized this was going to be part of the journey for the rest of my existence here. It's a really key, and that's where this has come from, that energy. So it is a separate topic, Richard. I want to honor our focus today, but I just wanted to plant the seed, because there's always a little more to the story, and we only have so much time. So go ahead.
Well, and that's right, Jake, because we have so many stories and we have so many things, and they go in incredible journeys. But for what we're doing, we eventually, this is what our point was. We had to drill it down to, what are we doing with this, right? This isn't, it was basically a hobby for me. It was getting to be a hobby. I'm getting all these results and things and stuff. So I'm going, okay, this is what we're going to do with it, right? So that's how we got in with the bees and doing that. And it was hilarious because I'd never had anything to do with bees before this. So it's not like I was connected to it. So, and Jake will attest to this. So I'm out here with beekeepers. There was a commercial beekeeper. They had maybe, 800 hives. I'm in the yard for the first thing, in there. Hi, Brent here in the yards and stuff. This is before we put the cells in.
Oh,
and
right.
Before
Yeah.
I know it, I'm running all over the yard. Bees are chasing me and stinging me, and it's like wow, like it's like right out of a cartoon, right? So I'm going, oh wow, I forgot about this, and so then when we started putting the cells in and going on to that, I go into beehives all the time now. They don't like in them, they're around you, they don't bother, and but it was a joke like when I was first going in, and it was just all of a sudden you're going, yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that, right? Bees, right? So we've gone through all of these journeys and doing stuff, but now it's getting really interesting because we can get just hundreds of beekeepers involved. We've got specific honeys that we're working with here, as Jake had said, and now we're out to take it, but not to make light of how well the pure wave cell works on the human body, because it does. And again, if you go to purewavecell.com, it's all on there. So it's all there, what's going on, what it does to food, what it does to the body, all those things. Those were studies that were done so people can see that. So, but our focus is building up the bees, getting out to the mission, and making a difference on this planet, and getting your audience involved, that they're helping with us and they're making a difference. And that's now we're utilizing a technology that all the people out there can get involved with. Kids go crazy. I'll go and have a group of kids that are under 10, which is hard to do. And you'll say to them, they'll go, hey, what do you do? And oh, well, we go and we help the bees. Oh, and they'll break in and say, oh, you know what? If we don't help the bees, we're not going to make it. So I got 6-year-olds pitching me on why we have to save the bees, right? It's absolutely phenomenal. And they'll go on in like for 5 minutes and just tell me how it's important it is. So it's really fun,
So the pure wave cell goes into a hive. How do the bees, like if you would have put a foreign object into a beehive, they would react a certain way. They would like wax it over or something, right?
Yeah. That's really a good point.
How do
Richard.
they react to the pure wave?
Great
Yeah,
question.
it's called propolis. It's called propolis. What they do is, if there's a foreign object or like a dead mouse or whatever in the hive, they'll cover it in a propolis, which is like a waxy material. They'll effectively mummify it. Right. And so it's for disinfectant reasons too. And then they'll get it out of the hive. With the pure wave cell, when it's in for whole season, you can take it out and there's nothing on it, practically nothing. They don't do anything to it, right? They just spit shine it. It's unbelievable. And you'll see that in the pictures. They have to we do it in a way, back to what you were saying, we put it in the hive. You'll see that they have to go back and forth over it every time they're coming in the hive and out. They're exposed to that cell. And then in the wintertime, when we pack the hives, the cell is on the top of the hive, because that's where they congregate, is up there. And then they move down as it gets warmer. So we have it each time that they're completely, and they will crowd around it. They will stay with it. They will treat it as like their home, and it really is amazing to see.
So they're producing, so these are healthy bees now because of this pure wave. They're producing the honey. Then you're taking the honey and you're recharging it with these pure wave cells. And so can you hold up that jar of honey again?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a picture on the lid there. I'll get an image and I'll insert it in the video so people can get a better look at it. But what are we looking at here? What is that image?
Go ahead, Jake. Tell them what that is.
Yeah. So what this image is, again, part of the 4RBs and what we're doing is trying to quantify and show what's happening here. I talked to a lot of beekeepers and scientists who are they're Trust me, they're skeptics, and I don't blame them, and we love it, and we welcome that. But this is electrographic image, Kirlian photography of the honey when it's been charged. And you can probably cut in a better picture. But that blue Kirlian photography is showing, and there's a video on our site that shows the difference without it being charged and with it charged, that the electrical field, if you want to state in a way, the aura or the field has been actually increased and more vibrant. It's more vibrant. And this is part of the process of production. You know, we know that this field, when shipped and things, may not hold that same integrity, right? That was when it was just charged. Yet the process, almost a quality control processing, in a way, a filtering process, or that's in the production part. After the honey's been bottled, it's actually charged. Again, after being from the hives that come from the bees that have been healthy, vibrant, and so on. So no, great question. It's Kirlian photography. It's really called electrographic imaging. And there's cameras you can get to measure the electrographic image of a substance. And it goes back to that everything is energy, you guys. Our cells, the atom, remember the star tetrahedron, the two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional atom. Well, what do you do when you combine a bunch of atoms? Well, you get molecules, you get substance. The iPhone or the computer or the tablet you're on right now is made of ultimately atoms, which is ultimately made of 99.999% nothing. It's energy. Energy condensed, formed, shaped in different ways, have different frequency. That's the essence of what we're doing. What we've done is simply played around with a shape that comes from these universal truths that we found to create an amazing energy. Great question someone asked the other day, and this is something I just want. How big is the field of the cell? Well, it's actually pretty localized in terms of measuring it with a EMF reader. I have some in my office, but you know, to measure the strength of the field, it's, what is it? It's about a foot radius around.
12 inches.
12 inches. And it's equally on both sides, creating that torus field. Now, placement in the hives varies depending on the type of hive. There's different types of structures, right? But usually we want it to where they go in and out. They're going to be around it. And it's really just adding to the overall healthy environment of their hive. And I'll tell you, there's nothing, it's amazing to see. And what I've been learning more about, because this is new to us, both Brent and I, in the last decade, really. You know, I've always known the value of bees, but to now get intimate with the beekeepers, the stewards, it's just fascinating. It's just fascinating to hear. And every beekeeper I want to acknowledge out there who's listening or knows of one has their own approach. It's an art. It's a form of artistry.
Right.
It's a form of artistry. And there's principles, best practices, chord structures, like any artist, musicians, for example. But there's also what works for them in their environment, their geographical information. A new beekeeper coming on to the program is in Florida. That's much different than Ontario and Michigan. They're not dealing with the winter, but they're dealing with other types of
neonicotinoids and 5G, all of that. We should point out also that Professor Magda Havas at Trent University, not too far from Toronto, out in Peterborough, is doing some amazing studies on the effect of this pure wave cell on these bee colonies and beehives. They're doing an actual, very controlled scientific study. And we've had her on before talking about this and other things.
Oh, okay.
Yes. No, Richard. She's
amazing.
Sorry,
she's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
I just was with Magna on on a Zoom call, and then I went to see her because we collected this data for the last year and a half, 2 years, and this spring we'll do a whole conclusion on what we're doing. So she'll be putting that report out somewhere by April or May, no, more like June, because we're doing the final onto it. So we're really excited to get that out and Richard, out to everybody, because that's going to be that's a completely independent study that she's been working on for a long time. So we're really excited about that, and we're excited that you've led us on here to explain what isn't necessarily easily explainable to an audience, because we're doing various things. We're taking technology, we're building up bee immune systems, but then we're going out in a mission to the public, to the world, to help support back into this, and then feeding. So it really is the pollinator and the food and the sources that everybody can get involved with. We just had to get the bases done and have the reports that people can count on and can trust us that we're doing it. So
okay,
this
so
is big. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
You know?
so people can help save the bees by
Yes.
they can purchase a pure wave cell
Mhm.
themselves, and they can anecdotally
The honey.
they
With the
can also
honey
buy the
and-
honey, which is charged with the same technology coming from these hives that have had this pure wave cell in it. So they're eating. I mean, honey is, as Tesla said, it's like the perfect food. I think Tesla survived towards the end of his life. All he ate was honey and oatmeal, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
This is honey, but taken to the next level.
Yeah.
And then so people they can buy some honey, they can buy a pure wave cell. The pure wave cell can be used on their body. It can be used to reduce or remove pathogens on their food.
Right.
That money goes back in so that now the beekeepers are getting these pure wave cells for their hives for free. They also have now a market for their honey. So it's this very symbiotic relationship. So how do people, how do they get access to the honey and these pure wave cells?
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, no, quite simple. Richard will provide at the bottom of this podcast the website links, 4rbees.com, and notice the link below in the description of this. It'll be there. And I want to just encourage everyone that all we are asking is not for you to go and buy tons of product. No, we're asking you to be aware and open up your consciousness that this is out there, that this is making a difference. That's all we ask. That's the number one thing we ask people to do, is say, check this out, be aware of what's happening, so that when you run across someone or you want to get involved with something greater than your own reality at the moment, we're open, we're here, this is what we're doing. The second option is to support us. Absolutely. You can become, for $10 a month, you can become part of the 1,000 Bee a Month Club, which is just goes into manufacturing, wildflower planting party, and the research and development for what we're doing. You could get a bottle of honey, you can get a case, you can get a cell. Those all go back. There's other things, lip balm, which is amazing. It comes from the actual same hives, the lip balm. There's little bracelet, there's little things like this, but ultimately, we're there to help educate and continue this ongoing research project that we're in. We had to come to a conclusion, and it took 10 years and it needed that time. There's something here. This is working. This is making a difference. Where we'll be in the next 10 is something I don't care about. What we're doing is taking care of the beekeepers that have chosen to work with us so that they are supported. And the beekeeper relationship's critical for us, everyone. They're the ones who are on the ground doing the work, nurturing the bees. And the honey is a byproduct of a successful hive. This is an example of a side effect. Again, and I want to address something too, because we understand the honey is produced as energy and food for the bees. We're aware of this. We're not ripping and stripping every ounce of honey for profit here. from the bees. That's not sustainable. The bees need this to last through the winters. This is their food. This is their energy. And so we acknowledge and honor that. We get it. We know it. And that's something I just wanted to address, because people are, how could you steal the honey? And the beekeepers we work with, I feel guilty taking the honey. Yet when there's an abundance unfolding and this gift they've created, it's an extraordinary. So do not take honey for granted when you're out there, all forms. Be careful too, because there's a lot of dealing with importation from Canada to the States. They're very careful. There's some artificial honeys. Those artificial honeys out there, you guys, the corn syrup, super, super negative for the body. Like, do not, make sure that it's sourced from real honey hives. And I won't get into the whole organic and non-organic stuff like that. That's a different topic. But no, that's how you can support what's going on. And
I just wanted to add one thing onto that, Jake. A lot of times when you're supporting things, you get things that are kind of cool, but you're supporting things. Believe me, that honey and those pure wave cells are really important to you, the person that's buying it. They're really beneficial. They're beneficial to your food. They're beneficial to your body. So
yep.
you're doing, it's a win-win scenario. You're helping the bees, but they're helping you too. So this is really powerful stuff. The more you look into it, the better it'll be. And we'll get a lot more testimonials in the future on people, but right now we're focused on the bees.
And by the way, the magnets every 10 years, they diminish about 1% to 2%.
Yeah.
Lifetime warranty. If the cell ever breaks, you send the magnets back, we replace the full thing. So this is it's not a water filter. It's not something it's a lifelong.
It's a lifelong
instrument in your life, in the lives. We have them all over the place. We have them in the bedrooms, help with sleep. We have them in the fridge. Food preservation is another. What we're researching is exciting. Extending the life. The whole pathogenia report about reducing the pathogen logs. We're testing food preservation for produce, for things. Have them in the fridge, have them out on the counter. They're coasters all over the house, because ultimately, and I'll leave it with this, our home is just another hive.
Excellent point. Excellent.
Yeah, that's right.
4ourbees.com, the number 4, the letter R, bees, 4ourbees.com, and purewavecell.com, purewavehoney.com. Founders Brent Knudsen and Jake Cunningham, thank you both.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks for what you're doing, man. Helping people not just wake up, because I feel a lot of people are already awake, but stay awake. Stay vigilant. And so what you're doing with all the information you share here is something we commend and we're grateful for. So thanks for having us.
My pleasure. All the best. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.